You're listening to Psych to Parent, where we turn brain science into tiny wins at home. I'm Dr. Amy, your not-so-typical school psychologist, mom of two, and endurance athlete. I love a good data set and a diagnostic manual. But I also forget permission slips, overthink IEP emails, and occasionally replay the moment I snapped at my kids in the car. In other words, I'm in the messy middle with you, not above it. This show is for parents of big feeling, big thinking kids who are tired of vague advice and Pinterest perfect behavior charts. Each episode, I'll pull back the curtain on what I see in real evaluations, school meetings, my private practice, and my own kitchen, and translate the research into simple scripts, tiny routines, and nervous system friendly tweaks you can actually use. Think of it as a nervous system rehab meets mindset coaching meets a smart, slightly spicy, non-judgy friend in your earbuds. We'll take one real life challenge at a time and shrink it down into 1 or 2 tiny wins you can start this week. No perfection, no 47-step sticker systems, just small, repeatable shifts that add up over time. Quick legal-ish note in plain English. This podcast is for education and support. It's not therapy, it does not create a clinical relationship, and it's not a substitute for personalized medical or mental health advice. If you're worried about your child's safety or mental health, or your own, please reach out to a trusted professional. Okay, deep breath, drop your shoulders. You're not behind and you're not alone. Let's get psyched to parent. I want to start with a story about a parent intake call I had in my private practice. Fully de-identified, of course, but you're listening and thinking, wait, this might sound like my house. That's kind of the point, because I get these calls and questions all the time. In this case, this particular caregiver was stuck on one really big question. Is this an underlying learning concern my child has? Or is it like an attention thing? Or is this just skill development and maturity? And honestly, that question is so common. It's also the question that sends you as a parent into that 1047 Google spiral where you're like, is this dyslexia? Is this ADHD? Is this anxiety? Is it 4th grade? And suddenly you're reading a PDF from 2009 with 37 tabs open on your web browser. Here's what the parents described to me in this case. Last school year was tough. It was a rough fit for their kiddo. Not like a little rocky, more like wrong match, very stressful. And the kid felt like they were on edge all the time at school. And then you start seeing anxiety-ish stuff kind of start to pop up, like nail biting, hair twirling, even though this kid usually shows up pretty confident. Now, this school year was better overall. It hasn't been perfect, but it's been substantially better from the parents' perspective and the kids. The caregiver called it a slow rebuild. And the teacher the kid has is early career. So there's a little bit of extra wobble there. And here's the part that matters. This family already has a lot of supports in place for their kiddo. It includes things like having the child do tutoring multiple days a week after school. There is school-based occupational therapy, which focuses on routines and following directions and just having a positive rapport and relationship with the child at school. There's also some newly initiated speech services to help with some speech challenges. So in this case, this wasn't a family ignoring things and like sweeping them under the rug. This was a family trying really, really hard. And then the school feedback came in after some testing, and the school said that they were noticing reading comprehension concerns. Specifically, the child could tell you the beginning of a story and the end of the story, but the middle events, the what happened in between, it just kind of fell apart. The kid couldn't recall it, they couldn't explain it. And the caregiver said something I think so many of you will recognize. They said to me, Amy, it feels like a lot is going on right now, but we don't have a cohesive plan. And that feeling, it shows up everywhere. It's not just school. It's the homework table. It's the morning rush. It's the car line where you're like, okay, buddy, give me something about your day, and you get fine. And then 2 hours later, you're in a full body meltdown because a reading passage had words. Like, what is going on? So, if you've ever had that feeling like you're doing all the things and your kid is working really hard and the school is trying something, you're trying something, and you still don't have clarity, this episode is for you because we're going to talk about when it's time to request an evaluation and what to say so it actually moves. And before we go any further, take a deep breath with me because this topic can hit your nervous system first as a parent and your logical brain second. Welcome back to Psych to Parent. I'm Dr. Amy, and here's what we're going to talk about in this episode: a clean, clear decision filter for when to request a school evaluation, the exact words that you can use for email scripts and meeting scripts so you're not winging it by yourself, and a calm, professional, yes and response for the most common stall. Well, we want to keep doing the interventions first because I want you walking in with that energy of, I'm collaborative, I'm calm, and I have receipts. I'm a fun mom, I'm a fun parent. Not the, I'm trying to remember what I meant to say, and now I'm crying in the Target parking lot after a meeting. Let's talk a little bit about the messy middle and normalize the spiral of parenting. If evaluation is on your radar, you're probably bouncing between two spirals. Spiral number one is the shame spiral. Am I overreacting? Am I being that parent? Are they going to label my kid? Am I messing this up? Spiral number two is the panic spiral. If we don't act right now, we're going to miss the window and everything will be harder forever. So I want to say this clearly. Needing more information does not mean your kid is broken. It means the situation is complex and you are done guessing. And for the big feeling kids especially, uncertainty is exhausting because when adults aren't sure what's going on, we tend to escalate pressure. We like to push this try harder kind of vibe. And pressure, especially on kids, it's not a strategy. Also, you don't get a prize for suffering longer before asking for clarity. That's not a thing, and we're not doing that. I want to give you a one question filter. So in my private practice, I move a family toward a comprehensive psychoeducational evaluation when I can answer one question with a clean yes. Will better data change what we do next? That's it. That's the anchor. Because an evaluation, whether it's based at the school or privately done by somebody like me, is not to prove my kid is struggling kind of project. It's a clarity project. If the data would change instruction, supports accommodations, eligibility decisions, or we understand what's driving the struggle, an evaluation is worth pursuing. If the data won't change anything, if everyone is aligned on what to do next, then we can often focus on interventions and monitoring without racing to testing. So if you're wondering how to decide without spinning, here are my 4 checks. I like to share my decision filter with you in these 4 checks to kind of help you frame your thoughts as a parent. Check number 1, is there real functional impact? I don't recommend evaluation because something is mildly annoying or a little harder than we'd like. I recommend it when it's interfering with access to learning or daily life. Functional impact can look like output collapsing, missing assignments that stack up for your kiddo, kids who can't show what they know on paper, even when they try and explain it out loud. It can show up like independent stuck. They can't start, they can't finish, they can't plan. It can look like big feelings blocking learning. So there might be shutdown, refusal, intense avoidance. There might be a skills gap emerging with like reading, writing, or math, not tracking with instruction. And notice the vignette I started this episode with. The caregiver wasn't asking because they were casually curious. They were overwhelmed by layers of support without clarity. If you're hearing yourself in that vignette and thinking, I'm doing a lot and I still don't know what the plan is, that's a very reasonable moment for you as a parent to say, okay, we need better data. Check number 2, is the pattern persistent and not a 1-week wobble? A go signal is repeatable and predictable, not one hard week after a vacation, not a temporary dip during a stressful month. Things I hear all the time are like, this has been the story since last school year. Homework is a 2-hour situation most nights. The same feedback shows up in every progress report. And I'll add this. If every Sunday night feels like a nervous system event in your house because Monday means school, that matters. That's data too. Check number 3. Have reasonable supports been tried? The gap's still there. This is a big inflection point. If a child has had targeted instruction or intervention, tutoring, classroom accommodations, behavior supports, and they are still not closing the gap, I, as a professional, am more likely to recommend an evaluation because we need to know why the supports aren't landing for the kiddo. And here's my school psych voice on it. It is totally fine for schools to keep doing intervention. I love intervention. We want that. We like that. We need that. But it's not either or. It's yes and. Yes, keep doing interventions, especially if the data shows they're helping. And start the evaluation process so we're not stuck in guess land. This is where I want parents to stop getting trapped in false choices. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can support your kid and gather data. Check number 4. Are adults stuck in motivation versus something else? This is the one I call the opinions are multiplying. When you hear things like, she's so bright, but nothing comes out on paper, or he gets it when you talk to him, but independent work falls apart, or it's inconsistent. Some days are great, some days are a total crash, or sometimes we can't tell if it's attention, anxiety, learning concern, or flat out avoidance. That's my cue that we need objective data to sort out the driver, not more opinions. Because when we don't have clarity, we tend to default to the easiest explanation. He's not trying. She just needs to work harder. She's being stubborn. They just need to focus. And for strong-willed, big-feeling kids, that story can turn into a power struggle really fast. I want to break down the 4 common lanes where children normally land so you can stop guessing. Now, most kids don't fit perfectly into one category. They're human. But these lanes help you organize what's happening so you're not chasing 14 different theories at once. Lane A, strong thinking, crumbling output. It's usually an executive function kind of lane. This is the pipeline breaks profile. It can be things like initiation, organization, their working memory, planning, completion. It's a smart kid, a kind kid, trying kid, and still the output doesn't match the brain. Lane B is the academic concerns, like reading, writing, math lane. This is where reading starts to affect everything, often when kids are in 3rd or 4th grade, because reading becomes the access point for information. It's how children access things in science, social studies, and yes, math word problems. The kid who used to feel solid in math, they suddenly struggle. Not because the math got impossible, but because the reading load doubled. Lane C looks at attention, focus, regulation lane. Attention and self-regulation are clearly impacting access to learning. It can impact things like independent work, transitions, stamina, emotional recovery. And finally, there's lane D, which tends to be slow processing speed, working memory strain, and uneven profile. This is the kid who needs more time than his or her peers. Tests are a disaster. The knowledge is there, but the performance doesn't match, especially under speed, writing, complexity. Now back to our vignette that we started this episode with, because this is where it gets practical. That detail about the child who can tell you the beginning and end of a story, but the middle falls out, that is a perfect example of why we don't want to guess. Because that middle falls out piece could be a working memory strain. It could be comprehension monitoring. It could be language processing. It could be attention drifting. It could be anxiety load under demand. And each of those paths lead to different supports. So what does evaluation actually do with that? Let's go behind my curtain. Let's go behind the curtain. Here's a look behind the testing curtain and what an evaluation is and what it isn't. Here's the plain language version. A good evaluation isn't one test score. It is a set of data points that helps you understand a child's learning profile, their strengths, what they need, patterns, and translates that into supports. It often includes data from the testing that's done with the school psychologist, but also input from parents, teachers, self-report from the child. An evaluation should help answer the question, what is getting in the way? What supports actually match the need of the child? What accommodations help access without lowering expectations? What intervention targets are the best use of time? And I want to reassure you about something. Testing is a snapshot. It's not a life sentence. Data is information for support. It's not a verdict. In the vignette I shared, the caregiver had already invested in multiple supports. So I validated that. And then I said something like, with this many supports already in play and persistent academic questions, a comprehensive psychoeducational evaluation is often the most efficient way to create a cohesive plan. And then I explained the process in a way that calms families down, because it shouldn't feel mysterious. 2 short morning appointments, because kids do better earlier, and shorter blocks protect their stamina. Then a separate parent feedback session where we translate results into a practical plan. What are we going to keep? What are we going to change? What to add? What to stop? And if we're considering anxiety or attention or autism traits, we're not guessing off of vibes. We're using behavioral rating scales and school input with consent to look for patterns across settings. Okay, so evaluation can bring clarity. Now let's talk about the school reality. How do you request it in a way that actually moves? Here's what a lot of parents don't realize. A written request is often the thing that starts the formal process. Then typically the school responds with consent paperwork and proposed areas to assess. Here's the thing that I think is really interesting here. I see noticeable differences between public schools and private schools with regards to the supports that are in place. Oftentimes, children enrolled in private schools seek out outside evaluations. That's a lot of what I do in my private practice. There's private schools all over my area in Tampa Bay. Oftentimes, having a resource like a school psychologist is expensive, and private schools tend to refer families to me who want a comprehensive evaluation. The gift I have is I've been able to work with so many different private schools that they know who I am, and we're able to partner and collaborate together, which is super awesome when it comes to supporting the child. I love that. That's my favorite thing I get to do. Now, when it comes to students enrolled in public school, parents can also choose to do a private evaluation with somebody like me. I do that too. However, public schools also have school psychologists on staff who can do the evaluation. And here's the thing. When it comes to getting an evaluation to move, especially in public school, a written request is often the first thing that starts the formal process. Then typically the school responds with the consent paperwork and proposed areas to assess. So if you want your request for an evaluation to move, your email needs 2 clear elements. 1, this is my formal written request for an evaluation. 2, please send the consent paperwork and proposed areas of assessment. I will return it promptly. And now the biggest stall that I hear from schools telling parents is this. Well, we want to keep doing interventions first. Here's your calm, professional yes and response. Yes, let's keep doing interventions, especially if they're helping. And at the same time, I want us to collect the data we need to understand what's driving my kid's struggle and what supports match my child's needs. So yes, we continue interventions, and this is also my formal request for an evaluation. That's collaborative, that's clear, that's hard to ignore. And if you're thinking, I cannot possibly say that out loud without my voice doing the little shaky thing, that's totally normal, which is why we're doing scripts. I love good copy-paste energy. Here's some parenting scripts you can borrow from me. Script number 1, the formal request email. The subject can be formal request for an initial evaluation in your child's name. Dear principal, puppy, and team, thank you for your partnership in supporting my child. This email is my formal written request for an initial evaluation to determine whether my child qualifies for special education and related services. and or whether a 504 plan may be appropriate. We are seeing a consistent pattern of functional impact, including, you can give some examples, difficulty completing independent work. Reading demands are impacting performance across subject areas. Maybe it's increasing shutdown when tasks involve reading and writing at home. Please send the district's consent paperwork and the proposed areas of assessment. I will review and return consent promptly. To support this request, I'm attaching 2 to 3 work samples of my child's, maybe an optional brief parent log of patterns with dates, and you can include something optional as an outside provider summary report. That often happens with families I work with in private practice who actually will request an evaluation at their child's public school, but we've already done the evaluation with me. That actually moves the process a little bit faster. Then you sign it, thank you, your name, your phone number. Now here's the line that prevents ghosting, and this matters. Can you please confirm receipt of this request and share the next steps and timeline for consent? Here's script number 2 when the school says, let's keep doing interventions. You can say something like, totally. We should keep interventions going, especially if they're helping. That's what we want. And at the same time, I want us to collect data. We need to fully understand what's driving the struggle and what supports match my child. So yes, we continue interventions. And this is also my formal request for an evaluation. Script number 3, when the school says, they're doing fine. Thank you. Can we look at the specific data you're using to say they're doing fine? Because at home, we're seeing a consistent gap between what my child knows and what they can produce independently. I'm requesting an evaluation so we can reduce guesswork and match supports to need. Script number 4, if the school team declines to evaluate. If the school team is declining to evaluate at this time, please provide prior written notice explaining the decision, the data used, and the options that were considered. And just a quick tone reminder. You say that calmly, like you're asking for the receipt at the post office. Neutral phase, clipboard kind of energy. Here are 5 tiny wins that make your request stronger and protect your energy. Tiny win number 1, start a 7-day dot log. Write 1 sentence with the demand, what happened, and what support was needed. For example, my child did reading homework, there was avoidance and tears, and my child needed me to sit next to them the whole time. Tiny win number 2, collect 3 work samples. 1 that shows what's hard, 1 that shows a strength, and 1 that shows inconsistency. Tiny win number 3, write 3 bullets before any meeting. Not a novel, 3 bullets. You're not winging it, you're prepping. I love using a sticky note for this so I don't forget what I want to say, and it's small enough I can put it on the palm of my hand and read it during a meeting. Tiny win number 4, send the request email plus the receipt line. Please confirm receipt and next steps for consent. Tiny win number 5, if you have any private supports, sign the release of information so the school and provider can share the same story. Pick 1 is enough. And if your nervous system wants to do all 5 tonight, nope, we're not doing that. Just pick 1. If your child has big feelings around school demands and they tend to shut down, have meltdowns, avoid, say things like, I hate school, it doesn't automatically mean they're dramatic or defiant. A lot of times, it means their body is telling the truth. And it feels like inside of them, this is too much demand for my current skill set right now. An evaluation doesn't erase the struggle, but it can stop you from parenting in the dark. And it can stop a school team from accidentally treating a skills problem like a character flaw. And if that's your kid, that's not you failing. That's you noticing. That's you doing your job as a parent. If this episode hit home, do 3 favors for me, my friends. First, share this episode with a friend who's in that this isn't adding up season of life. Favor number 2, join my email list where I share short, doable tools that you can actually use. Third favor, leave a review for the Psych to Parent podcast wherever you like to listen to a podcast. They mean so much to me and I read every single one of them. If you're in that space where you're already doing support, your kid is trying, and you still feel like there is no cohesive plan, here's your anchor. Will better data change what we do next? And if the school says, let's just keep doing interventions, Remember, it's not either or, it's yes and. Keep the supports going and request evaluation so you can stop guessing and start matching help to what your child actually needs. We'll keep making the homeschool puzzle less mysterious together. One better question at a time, one same kid, different math reminder at a time, one email that's clear and firm without being a novel. And the next time you sit at that round table in that tiny chair, remember, schools have expertise, and you are the expert on your child. Your insight is not extra, it's essential. You're not behind, you're building a partnership, and you're building skills, yours and theirs, one small, doable step at a time. Until next time, my friends. Thank you for hanging out with me on Psych to Parent. I'm Dr. Amy, your not so typical school psychologist, and I'm genuinely glad you're here doing this work instead of quietly white knuckling it and blaming yourself. Your tiny win from today's episode is simple. Do not overhaul your entire parenting style. Pick one idea, one sentence, or one tiny shift and try it in a low stakes moment this week. Then notice what changes, even if it is just by 1%. If you want more support, head over to psych2parent.com. You'll find show notes, simple scripts, and parent-friendly guides that go with these episodes. While you're there, make sure you join the Tiny Wins mailing list so you get weekly brain-based tips, real-life examples from my work with families, and first dibs on new workshops and resources. It's the easiest way for us to stay connected beyond the podcast. If this podcast was helpful, it really does matter when you tap follow or subscribe. Leave a quick review or text it to a friend who is parenting a big-feeling, big-hearted kid too. This podcast is for education and encouragement. It is not therapy, and it's not a substitute for individualized care. If you're worried about your child or yourself, please reach out to a trusted professional in your area. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are building something new, one tiny win at a time. I'll see you in the next episode, probably with a cold coffee in hand, cheering you on.